Hello and welcome to the West Tigers podcast, episode number 256. Usual midweek crew, Eddie, Declan and Gary going to preview the game against South Sydney on Saturday afternoon. West Tigers, Gary, they're going for a third win in a row. I believe that hasn't been done for quite a few years.
Hasn't been done in quite a while, and there was some of us that thought maybe a win wouldn't come at all this season. So to be even in a position where we're going for our third win in a row it's a pretty big turnaround from 2 weeks ago.
Declan, optimism is growing. I'm not sure whether it's growing that we can go as far as beating South Sydney, but where's your head at the moment with your on an optimism scale?
Yes, reasonably good. I feel like it's been a really quiet week for us, which is strange. I think all the drama from St. George has kind of soaked up the media headlines. And then even the Roosters have been copping a little bit with Suaalii and all that. So it really must be, bizarre world that we're not really copping any media heat, but the Roosters are. So, yeah, I think in terms of optimism, I think I'm probably, like last few weeks before the Penrith game, I think I was at DEFCON 2. I think you were at DEFCON 1. So I would say I was a little bit better than you. But I'm still trying to not be a prisoner of the moment and try and be realistic still to the fact that we probably have a lot still to improve on if we want to beat teams like South.
Group chat's probably been a bit quieter place the last couple of weeks, Gary. I haven't had much to complain about.
Yeah, no whinging Eddie in there. So I think we almost went a day without a message at all. So Eddie doesn't speak much when we're doing well. It's only when we're doing poorly.
Well, it's lucky you've got me tonight, boys, because like you said, it has been a very quiet week. Usually the topics sort of write themselves, but I've had to be a little bit creative tonight, Declan. We're doing our draft again, but we're going back into the archives or looking at the overall. Who is the best player in West Tigers history? And I'm going to give you and Gary 3 picks each. I haven't decided who's going to get first pick because that will be crucial tonight. Do you want the first pick of the draft tonight?
Yes, I do. And can I just clarify, is it the best player, talent-wise, or the best player in terms of what they've achieved at the club?
I think I'm just going to leave it up to you guys. I'm just going to say best, which is open-ended, I know, but I think that leaves it, might be more interesting. So if we go to achievements, then you can just go off stats and whatnot. So I'm just saying best player in West Tigers history, 3 picks each. Yes, Gary.
So will Blake Lazarus get a run?
Well, if he wants to be in your top 3, Gary, you might cop a bit of backlash. So you're more than welcome to put anyone you like in your top 3. But he's not in my
Ben
top.
Black.
Good. Boys, last week I wasn't on Sunday night, Declan, but I did listen to your podcast. The last play is something I wanted to, essentially the last play, focus on, where we stopped the St. George try with the effort from Buller in the corner. But there were 2 players there that I felt made multiple efforts on that play. And I'm hoping that's part of a turnaround in the culture of this club. I saw Isaiah Papali'i. I thought he made at least 3 efforts on that play when he was down and out. And Jerome Buller obviously made 2 or 3 efforts on that play. Now, I don't know. I can't think of a play in recent memory where I've seen that. Now, obviously, it's amplified because the game was on the line, but that was heartening to see.
It was good to see. Obviously, I don't think Papali'i's really risen to the expectations we had of him, perhaps when we signed him from Parramatta, but I think that it's really good to see those kind of effort plays because it shows he does care. I think I in particular was a little bit worried that I wasn't sure what kind of person we would get after the kind of off-field dramas with the whole contract situation last year, but you can't really doubt his effort plays, and hopefully the more combination he builds, hopefully the closer he gets to that 2021 form.
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that, Gary. What about Isaiah Papali'i? I thought the first few weeks he was maybe a bit disappointing, but he had such a good combination last year with Mitchell Moses and obviously Reed Marnie feeding him the ball. So I think he's been a little bit of a victim of maybe our lack of production in the halves. Is that fair, or maybe he did have a slow start?
Yeah, I don't think our game plan overly suits the way he plays. He's getting through plenty of meters. He's doing plenty of work and plenty of defense. And we all saw his effort in that play we've just been speaking about. The big issue with him, I think, is he does a lot better when he hits a hole and you give him the ball at the hole. And at no point this season have we been doing that for either of our second rowers. we've been giving them early ball and expecting them to do the work themselves. And I think that works really well for Bateman, but I don't think it works as well for Asaya. I think he really needs that kind of space created for him, and he be hitting a hole, and we just haven't been doing that.
Yeah, obviously in like 2021, he hadn't really hit his peak, so it's easier to play really well when teams aren't really like game planning for you, if that makes sense. Because obviously when you play the Tigers, Papali, he's going to be one of the first people you kind of like talk to the team about how to defend. But I just think 2021, his stats were just off the charts in terms of his running meters, his tackle breaks, his offloads. In fact, there was even times during the season that they put him in the middle of the field just to wreak havoc. And I'm just not seeing the same leg drive, the same leg strength that I did from back then. A little bit from Parramatta last year as well. I'm not sure. I have no idea why that is, but yeah, hopefully, as you guys said, like if we can somehow let her attract a top quality half, maybe that will bring it out of him. But I just want to see a little bit more productivity in terms of his yardage and his tackle rates, because we've seen he can do it for sure.
Gary, just back on that last play, what I was sort of getting at is just, I know we did recruit some big names over the off-season, and a lot of big names have flopped at this club, but I'm hoping some of these guys are winners. And I know that sounds a bit silly to say when you're still sitting on the bottom of the table, but, I think Clemmer, Coruscant, Ice, Johnny Bateman, I think they have been leading from the front. And I just think over the last decade, there's been a lot of players at the Tigers that have just been happy to be first graders. And that might be just young guys who, come in and do well and then plateau, or some of those guys like Adam Blair who just come in on big money, Russell Packer, and don't produce the goods. Do you think this could be a bit of a turnaround in terms of the mentality of the team?
Even during our losing streak, the thing that gave me a little bit of hope is our best players were our new players. It was the guys we brought in over the off-season to strengthen our squad, and I thought they had done that. I thought they were leading from the front, and we had to find some players to follow them. And I think that started to be sorted out a little bit. I think having a guy like Buller come in and the effort that he's putting in and the commitment that he's showing so early in his career, following those guys, I think has been a real step forward. And if we continue to bring in guys like that, then the squad's only going to get stronger. I'm quite happy. I'm very happy with how those new recruits have gone to the club. And I'm very happy with how the likes of Tupu and Buller have come along this year from who were at the club last year.
Declan, my other, talking point from the game was just dying on the last play a lot. I know you guys talked about that on Sunday night. I think it might be a tactic from the coaches. It probably is, but I still think that's a bit of a cop-out. I just think the guys on the field, you need to put some pressure on the opposition. And I know that might sound hypocritical because at the start of the season we're saying these guys are trying too much and they need to simplify things. But, when it's 14-4 and there's 20 minutes to go or whatever and you're just dying on the last play, even a little grubber or something, you see how often that ball ricochets and you get six again or the opposition knocks it on. I just don't think that was good game planning, and I think we got away with it in the end.
Yeah, I think that it's definitely a calculated risk to back your defence if you kill it in the corner and back your defence, especially in those like first few tackles when it's usually the wingers and the centres that take the hit-ups. I think that in terms of the halves, it's clear that Luke Brooks, he does have a bit of a habit of over-kicking the ball like on the last. And I think that if we're going to play this kind of like almost match ball where it's you put high pressure on the defense, like you play the yardage territory game. Like a team like us, we're not very good at defending our mistakes in terms of penalties and then the other team uses scores. So I think that to simplify, I think I can see why they're doing it because if we just defend really really well, then we can beat a few teams. But you saw against the Dragons, didn't you? There was a few like really cheap penalties, some like really silly stuff, and that kind of like undid a lot of the good work that we did. Like obviously, I agree with you. I think long term, you're going to need to roll the dice a little bit, like on the last, and then like have a half that can execute that. But I think for now, I don't hate it if that makes sense.
But I think even a kick that's not necessarily about pinning them in goal, even a kick that pulls up right on the try line or just before the try line, to kind of just give that ability for a little bit of a chance, maybe a ricochet. the problem with ricochets is they can go both ways, and it doesn't take much for a guy to pick up the ball and run 100 meters and score either. So I do understand why they're doing it. I want to see a little bit more on those for those fifth tackle options at the moment. I just think it's a little too predictable, and it makes our whole attack that little bit too predictable at the moment.
Obviously, it's the percentage play, and I think the thing to do if you're inside 5 minutes and you're up by 2, Gary, if they can go 95 meters, good luck to you. But I'd be pretty surprised if Benji Marshall and Tim Sheens are instructing the halves to do that. I think it's more the fact that Luke Brooks may be thinking, oh, what if I do kick it dead? I'm going to get hammered. Maybe it's the safe option for him at the moment.
No, I think it has to be coaching. It's happening way too much for it not to be. I think it's got to be part of the game plan. Because, it pretty much happened every set of 6 on the weekend, and I don't see a player just going out and deciding to do that themselves.
Okay, fair enough. I think that's interesting, given the attacking nature they wanted to come into the season with, but maybe they backtracked. Declan, just on the ladder, obviously we didn't go past the Dragons with the victory, but we did join them on 2 wins. It's an interesting sort of ladder. I think there's 7 or 8 teams on 5 wins. So, I mean, essentially we're only 3 wins out of the 8, but I still think there is a distinct, if I was to call it a tier, I still think we're in a tier with the Dragons. Maybe 1 or 2 other teams could be dragged into our tier. What do you reckon?
I mean, right now it's really hard to gauge where the Tigers are at from my perspective, just really because the team that played in round 1 against the Titans is just completely different to the team that's played now in terms of the game plan. So, obviously there was lots of ad-lib footy, trying to push the pass in round 1, and which led to a lot of losses because we just couldn't complete, really. We couldn't execute that. And now they've turned into a very conservative team that focuses on high completion rates and, as we said before, just killing the ball back in defence, back in the forward pack. So in terms of tiers, I'm not really sure where I would put the Tigers at the moment. You could definitely make an argument that they still are bottom tier, but I think that if we were to play like we are now against teams like the Titans and the Knights, I think we'd probably walk away with W's.
Okay, Gary, it's a good 3 weeks coming up because, I mean, this week's going to be tough, but I think it's then the Cowboys at Leichhardt and the Raiders at Campbelltown. So there's 2 winnable games there. If we can go into our next bye having won 4 out of 5, you get yourself to that halfway point, then, then maybe they can get out of this bottom 3 or 4 at the end of the year.
Yeah, look, at the moment, my goal is just to avoid the wooden spoon. And if we get 3 weeks away and we've won 2 of those games, then I'll kind of reassess it. But at the moment, it's to get in front of us just one team at the moment, probably the Dragons, because I think the Dragons are on the downward trend. So my aim at the moment is to get above the Dragons.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you listened to Jack Bird talk today, Gary, but I mean, if we have any players that are that unintelligent, I suggest you don't put them in front of a microphone. Just basically have the whole fan base. Yeah, so have a listen to that one, maybe if you're a St George fan. Stefano Declan, he wants to be our next first grade captain. There was a bit of an article I saw in the Sydney Morning Herald. He's already the club's delegate to the Rugby League Players Association. He captained the team in the trials this year, and he is part of the leadership group. Obviously, he was part of the extended Origin squad in 2021. His football's probably not at that stage at the moment, but do you see him as potentially the next West Tigers captain?
Yeah, I think when Appy goes, so obviously Appy's contracted for this year, next year, and then there's a team option. So you would assume that he'll be here for the next 3 years. So, but after that, I could definitely see it because he's always struck me as someone who trained really hard. Even when he debuted, he was really fit. He didn't really look like he was, underdone going into first grade. And I know he debuted for the Eels, but he only really played 3 games, 10 minutes each off the bench. So, from my perspective, I really do see him as someone who, the club has really brought on into first grade. And I think it'd be really good just to have a captain of a team that, started, as a rookie and then, worked his way up to the top. And there's no doubt that he's definitely talented enough to kind of have the aura of a captain. But I think it would just be, really good for club culture just to see someone who came in 3 in a row games and then, worked his way up to being a captain.
Gary, I have some reservations about this just because... And I shouldn't compare him to Adam Roods, but I just think similar age, similar position. And we saw what happened to Aaron. He basically lost his mind by the time he was captain and force his way out of the club. Now, Stefano might be a completely different character, and everything he's done suggests that he is. But do I make some points there that it might be a little bit early in the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think he's got leadership potential. I like the way that he speaks. We did an ambush event with him last year, and he was fantastic at that. The concern I have is he still has big areas of his game that he still needs to work on. I think he's playing quite good football at the moment, but he hasn't reached that potential yet. So I'd like to see him focus on that, on his game. And if he has his game sorted out in the next couple of years and he's probably playing at his peak, then have a look at him. But until he gets a little bit closer to what his potential is, I'd rather see him give that a miss for a little bit.
Young boy we signed during the week, Declan, from the Bulldogs, Iverson Masai. I believe he was in the Dogs SG ball squad with an NRL development contract. Do you know anything about him?
Yeah, so I've never really seen him play before. I've just heard that the Bulldogs had quite high raps on him a few years ago. He plays halfback. He captained their SG ball team this year. They didn't make the finals though, but I still think it's a pretty good sign if he's the captain of the team. He seems to, from the highlights, have be a predominantly kicking halfback. I haven't really seen that many highlights of him running the ball. It's an interesting one because the Bulldogs have a few really good halves in their system at the moment. They won the Harold Mats this year, and apparently the halfback in that team is pretty good. And then they have a player in the Jersey flag called Justin O'Neill, who's apparently really good as well. So that seems to me to be like a calculated decision by the Bulldogs to let Marai go because maybe they rate those other two ahead of him. So from that perspective, I think it's just kind of a wait and see how he goes. But in terms of our Jersey flag team, I think he's definitely going to be ahead of the two guys we have there because I think Camero showed glimpses, but he hasn't really probably developed like we had hoped. And I think Tom Chester just came in at the start of the season, so I think he'll probably walk into the flag team, and from there, who knows? He might turn into a genuine first grade player that we desperately need at the moment.
Look, I think the writing was probably on the wall for him at the Bulldogs. They have Matt Burton playing 5'8", and they paid a $500,000 transfer fee for another half. So I think that kind of probably blocked his pathway through at the Bulldogs a little bit. So I'm not surprised he was kind of looking at another opportunity. And if you are a young half, with the lack of depth at the Tigers, it's probably not a bad spot to go if you're looking for an opportunity.
Could that be a way around Declan getting an experienced half, or is an experienced half still the priority? Because we saw, you mentioned the Bulldogs, his name escapes me, but the $500,000 transfer fee. Also, the Dolphins picked up the young guy from Penrith who's been a regular in their first grade team. Would you rather see us punt on someone young, or do you think we still should be looking at someone experienced for the next 2 years?
I mean, I think we should do both, to be honest. I think we should sign someone with experience, then take a punt on someone young, whether it's someone like Schuster or someone even younger than that who hasn't really who hasn't debuted yet, like Ethan Sanders, who I'm trying to well into existence as signing. So yeah, someone like that. I think we probably need youth and experience at the moment. And I'm not too sure about Marai because we don't really know if he has the potential to play first grade. So I would still be signing someone else if I could.
Okay, interesting. We'll see. Apparently, he may be. He's been named on the SG Ball bench this week. I believe they're playing the Rabbitohs, so we might get a bit of feedback on how he went next week. Gary, it's time. My favourite time of the week. It's time for buy, sell, or hold.
Fantastic.
Question 1, Gary. You only get one hold. There are 8 questions tonight. Api Koroisau should be signed to the end of 2027 for the West Tigers.
That's a good question. I'm going to sell that for now. May change my mind.
Would you have bought it if I said the end of 2026?
Possibly, yes. So yeah, I'd probably buy it to the end of 26. The end of 27, starting to get that. That's a fair way away, and he's starting to get a little bit older. So yeah, I'd like to see how he's going in 12 months' time.
Declan, surely he's the sort of player, and you see with technology, the way players look after themselves, how professional they are. Players are getting better in their early to mid-30s. So why wouldn't we jump in and re-sign him till the end of 26 or 27? What do you think?
Well, I think probably the main reason would be that we probably earmarked Tyler De Silva to take over. I don't know exactly when that is, but you would imagine the football team and their little org charts have like years and when they kind of expect him to take over. And then, yeah, with Happy, I think it's interesting to see how his game will age because, you know, he's quite athletic still, but I would say his reception and his body language are kind of more what gets him to be the player he is. So I'm not really sure how that will age over time, but he's on contract at the moment. So he's contracted this year, next year, and then we have a team option. So that goes up to, so the team option is for 2025. So we've still got plenty of time to evaluate him, maybe closer to when he does kind of come off contract.
Is that a club option or a mutual option? I thought it was a mutual option.
Well, so actually, it's pretty funny because he was on Fletch and Hindy, that like kind of pre-season segment they do, and he said it was a club option to them. So I'm not like that's just from like the horse's mouth. It could be a mutual option still, but like he said it, so I'm inclined to believe that it's a club option.
Wouldn't you just take that up now, Gary?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good contract for the club. The thing is, they don't need to take it up now. They can wait till next year and make a decision next year. If it's an option in their favour, it probably has a date it has to be made by, but there's no need to rush it because you have it anyway. So,
Harry, I was a little bit worried early in the year about his leadership because I think he's a bit of a larrikin. He was never a leader in terms of, you know, facing the media and stuff at Penrith, but he's really impressed me the last few weeks. I think he's starting to, no doubt the boys respect him immensely, but his leadership skills have grown on me. I don't know if that's just the wins or what I see on the field.
Look, from what I've seen for the majority of this season, I think he's a really good leader on the field. I think he leads from the front. As his form's got even better and as he's got used to the club a bit more, he leads by example better than anyone in our team. So the fight that he has in him during games is really impressive to see. And I don't overly care about the off-field stuff. I don't care about the talking to the media. I don't usually watch the press conferences, that sort of stuff. So I want to see him as a leader on the field, and I think he's a very good leader on the field. So I'm quite happy with him as captain this year and probably next year as well.
Declan, buy, sell or hold. This is the best forward pack we've had since 2011.
I am going to buy that just purely because I know like the other team in my head is that team with Martin DePau and like Aaron Woods when Aaron Woods was playing for Australia, and we don't really have like a rep forward with that quality. But I feel like David Clemmer is playing like that. He might not necessarily get the accolades for it, and then obviously Api Koroisau is the best player we've had at hooker since Robbie Farah, who wasn't playing. And that I think he may have been already out at South, or like he was maybe falling out with Jason Taylor, so his form was a little bit up and down. So I think that would. So I'm going to buy it for that reason. But it is it's probably. I feel like that team under Jason, that forward pack under Jason Taylor is a little bit underrated.
Okay. Yeah, Gary, I brought up just on our chat during the week, sort of 2014. It was sort of. It came and went quickly, that forward pack, because I remember at the start of the year, they had the likes of Martin Tapau. They even had James Gavett, who were like wrecking balls coming off the bench. Then in the starting side, I think they had Woodsy, Liam Fulton, Chris Lawrence, who was probably transitioning to a back role. But I think this forward pack, what they produced on the field, it probably is our best pack since 2011.
I'd buy that as well. I think it's probably our best forward pack since 2011. I still think we do miss that high impact wrecking ball type player, that Junior Paulo type player. I think if it had that type of player, it's probably the best forward pack in the comp. But just lacking that high energy, that guy that can really damage the defensive line. That Steph shows occasionally, just doesn't quite show it enough for me. And I'm quite happy with how he's playing, but he doesn't have that high impact all the time that some of the really good props in the game have. So I think we're just lacking that player from being close to the best forward pack in the comp.
Declan, Sean Bloor is failing to live up to his potential.
I'm going to hold just purely because I think we signed two back rowers. They're our internationals. One plays for England, one plays for New Zealand. It's not necessarily like easy to crack our back row at the moment. And by all reports, he played really well in the New South Wales Cup. So I'm going to hold it for that reason.
Surely, Gary, though, he's good enough to get on our bench. I'm a bit surprised, given I thought the trials and the first couple of games, how he looked, and like the mentality I thought he had, I'm surprised he can't crack our 17.
He'd be in my 17, so I'm not going to say he's not living up to his potential at the moment. I don't think he's reached his potential, but I just don't. I think he should be in the team. I don't think we're giving him a fair go with him in reserve grade and missing out at the moment. He'd definitely be in the squad before Talau for me.
And he has more. Someone like Kapoa has more utility value in that 17 spots because he can play back row and then he can play in the centres as well. And then in an emergency, you can put him on the wing. So I feel like it's not necessarily that Kapoa's a better player than Blower. It's just like he can just play more possessions if there's an injury.
Gary, Mitchell Pearce or Sean Johnson will be our halfback in 2024.
I would like it to be, but I'm going to sell it because I just don't think it's going to happen. I would like to get one of them. I'd like to get Sean Johnson. I'm not overly fussed on Mitchell Pearce. I hope it happens, but I don't think it's going to.
Roosters are getting desperate, Gary. Apparently they want to give him a farewell season.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me either. Their forms, that they've kind of dropped away this season, and they're doing a lot worse than I expected to see them doing.
Declan, you're a Sean Johnson fan. Again, we spoke at length. I'm not going to go into it again, but you'd prefer him over someone like Pearce?
Yeah, definitely 100%. Because Mitchell Pearce, like I'm sure he's still playing great footy in the Super League, but it is the Super League, and by all reports, he has missed some games with injury. But I feel like Sean Johnson has kind of had a bit of a renaissance, and I feel like he still does have a lot of good footy to play. I think he'd get on really well with Benji Marshall in terms of how they both see the game as well, which I think is important for a coach. And I think that he could play the high up-tempo game from a halfback point of view that we tried to play at the start of the year, because he's got that he can game manage as well, but he's shown that he can still run the ball quite well. And I think we could get him on a pretty reasonable deal, maybe 2 years if the Warriors were only willing to offer him one, that's the biggest part though, because like realistically he probably wouldn't want to leave New Zealand, but I suppose you've got to ask the question, don't you?
And I think our biggest problem so far this season has been our red zone attack. So the attack in the 20 metres, and I think he'd go a long way to opening that up a lot more. So I think he's the exact type of halfback we need. I'm not too concerned about a guy that like the typical organizer that everyone keeps talking about, because we're actually getting around the field quite well. We're getting into good positions on the field. We just don't have the creativity to take advantage of it now. So I would much prefer a halfback who is an attacking halfback, a creative halfback. I think that's really what we're lacking at the moment.
Interesting point, Gary, because, I mean, usually if you go through YouTube and watch Sean Johnson highlights, some of his best work's done from 30, 40 metres out. But this year, he's been deadly in the red zone, isolating opposition halves and back rows, and his short kicking game, and obviously some of his tip-on plays in the last.
Yeah, and if you have a look at our games, that's exactly what we've missed. So I think he would add a lot.
Declan, 8 wins would be an acceptable season.
Because we only won 3 or 4 games last year. I was thinking 4, but then I thought, like, for some reason I just assumed the Cowboys game is a win in my head, even though it actually wasn't. So it was only 3 games last year.
4.
4. Okay,
so that's less. We beat the Broncos. We beat
Paramount.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, that's double. And as you said, Tim Chains, he'd probably go to the board and be like, well, I've doubled our win total from last season.
Declan, I think you're accepting mediocrity.
Well, considering how we started, I think any of us, before we won these 2 games, if someone said you can win 8 games this season, I think we would have probably grabbed that pretty quickly.
Yeah, I deliberately sort of loosely ended the question, Gary, because, if you had said to me in February 8 wins an acceptable season, I would have picked up my laptop and threw it out the window. But now I'm probably thinking it is. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I'll buy it as long as the football we play is a better standard of football than what we've seen in the past. I don't want to see a team that's giving up. If we've got a team that's played how it has so far this year, and especially the last couple of weeks, that they're really having a proper crack and we're winning things like the meters and all that sort of stuff, and we're still just lacking that half. And especially if we have a half signed for next year, then I can cop 8. I could probably cop a little bit less if we have a decent half signed for next year.
Declan, now it's a real coincidence. This question's landed on you. Luke Brooks should be re-signed as a number 6.
Sell. I actually think that he would. I actually would be open to the possibility of him staying if he put together like a really consistent period of good footy. But as a 7, not as a 6, I just don't think that he's creative enough to play 6. I think like he's shown that he can do a really good job at halfback in the position he's playing right now. But I think if you move him to the 6 jersey, I think that will just kind of encourage him or kind of force him to like be the kind of player that he's kind of struggled to be, which has come up with big plays at big times. So for that reason, I'm going to sell re-signing him as a 5'8".
Okay, I thought Declan had mellowed in regards to Luke Brooks, Gary, but that was a pretty adamant sell. Where do you sit on that?
I want 2 new halves. Like, that's my preference, so I'll be selling it as well. As you were asking Declan that question, though, all I could imagine was the Wall Street scene where they're all on the floor yelling "sell, sell, sell" at once. Because that's what I pictured Declan in that scenario.
I was listening, Gary, to the podcast. Obviously, on Sunday, you made some good points about.
Of course, I did.
I just don't know where his football IQ is sometimes. Like, in regards to what you were saying about his running game, it feels like to me like he gets out there and just decides my first 4 touches are going to be runs, rather than running at the right time. And there were times where I thought he was going to sort of open St George up a bit on the weekend because he does still have the same pace I think he had when he was 19 or 20. Maybe there just wasn't someone running with him, or people don't know when he's going to run. It just doesn't seem like it. Just seems very random.
I think he's fairly premeditated. I don't think he's a natural guy who can look at the defensive line and tell straight away what it's doing. I really think he needed to be taught at some point the cues to look for in a defensive line. When a guy turns his shoulders in, it means he's going to come in. All those sort of things, I just don't think he's able to read. And that's why you end up getting plays where I think he's premeditating. When he does that step back inside and runs into 3 defenders, I think it's because he was always going to run before he even got the ball. And I don't think he reacts well to what the defense does. Though, with his passing game over the past couple of weeks, there have been some nice balls thrown where he's got men on the outside of their defenders. So maybe that is improving and someone's in his ear about what to look for in the defensive line. But that's always been my biggest fault on him, is I don't think he reads a defensive line very well at all.
2 questions to go, boys, and we will get a bit later onto our draft. We are asking Gary and Declan to rate the best players in West Tigers history. They get 3 picks each. I still haven't decided who gets the first pick. These last 2 questions maybe intertwine into that. Declan, losing Scott Prince was the biggest turning point in West Tigers history. Buy, sell, or hold?
I'm going to buy that just purely because obviously I wasn't really like an expert of the team at that particular point. Probably still not an expert on the team at this particular point.
You just stole my next line. Well done.
I just feel that they never really, like, looking back retrospectively, they never really managed to replace him for any significant period of time. I think the closest they got was Robert Louis, and we kind of know how that ended. So if they had a consistent half combination like Prince and Marshall, then I do think they could have won another comp, because we saw how good the Titans were when he was playing for them, when he was still in the peak of his powers. So I think realistically they probably could have won another comp if they managed to keep that core nucleus of those 2 together.
Gary, I mean, there were some other turning points I thought of, like the Simon Dwyer injury and Taniela Tuaki, but I think Prince was the biggest just because, like Declan said, he was at the peak of his powers and in the key position.
Yep, I have to buy it as well. I think I agree with Declan. If he had stayed, we probably win another comp at some point. It was quite devastating I remember it at the time. I was quite upset. But all through that kind of negotiation period where it seemed like he was going to go, it was really hard to take, because I think he's the best halfback we've had by a long way. Robert Louis did a good job during 2010 and 2011. But yeah, if we had Scott Prince, well, I think we win another comp.
Declan, last question. Jason Taylor was definitely the worst coach in West Tigers history.
There's been a few. That's a pretty.
I think he's definitely the worst.
Yeah, look, I think that he probably laid the groundwork for Mitchell Moses and James Tedesco to leave. I know that he wasn't the coach that ended up being there when they did leave, but yeah, I think ultimately maybe if we did have someone else, maybe they could have laid the platform for us to keep those two. So for that reason, I tend to agree to buy it. Sorry, but I think that there are other coaches that I think might get a little bit close as well.
Terry Lamb, he had no idea, Gary, really. I mean, he was driving, I think, a beer truck 2 months after he got fired. But I just think for the damage Jason Taylor did to the club at a time where we should have been on the up, that's why he's clearly the worst for me.
Yeah, I've got him a tie with Terry Lamb. Terry Lamb was really poor as well. And through his inaction, we ended up on news stories all around the world for a very unpleasant act that he kind of condoned. So, yeah, I have Taylor and Lamb as a tie for first for the worst coach.
Big hello out there to John Hopewade if he's listening. Declan, there's an injury update. Obviously, not good news for AD. He just underwent stage 1 of his ACL reconstruction process. It's going to be up to 4 months apparently till he can wait for what is the usual one-step ACL surgery. So he is looking at potentially another 13, 14, 15 months out, which raises a question for me. Will he ever play for the West Tigers again? A sad story.
Yeah, obviously it's really bad because they've had to undo the previous surgery and then wait to do the actual surgery that's going to repair the knee. So it just sucks for him, doesn't it? Because, you never really want to see someone go through this. And you want to see them succeed or fail on the merits of their own kind of actions on and off the field, not really injuries. So, it blows from that perspective. But I'm pretty confident that this isn't going to be the end of him. I think in terms of being the 5'8" going forward, like high doubts that that's going to be the case. But I think we'll see him, maybe not at the Tigers, but I think we'll see him in the NRL when he gets back.
I mean, Gary, yeah, I mean, the timing of this is awful because I suppose in a way he's lucky that we re-signed him for 24, but probably looking at maybe like a train and trial deal either with our club or another club in 25, or can he? I just find it hard, like him when he came back last year. It took him 6-8 games just to get the confidence back, and you imagine the mental scars from this sort of injury, having essentially 18 months out of the game. It's going to take him a while to get up and running.
Yeah, I really think the best that he can really hope for moving forward is maybe a minimum contract at a club, because I don't see him getting enough time on the field next year to push a claim for much more than that. And I really feel for the guy because he's gone from, he was looking for a decent contract for the next season and beyond, and he's now in a position where a train and trial deal is not out of the question. And yeah, I do really feel for the guy because it's quite a bad injury, and yeah, I don't know what his future holds at this point.
Declan, Charlie Staines, he underwent surgery 2 weeks ago to repair a perforated bowel. Doesn't sound like much fun. Her playing date yet to be advised, but you would hope that he could maybe come back for the last 8 or 10 games because he was going well.
Well, wasn't the initial prognosis that he was going to be out for 13 weeks? So you'd imagine if that's true, he's still got plenty of time on the sideline. I think it's just such an abnormal injury for a footy player. So it's kind of hard to assess when he's going to come back. Can he train with the injury as well? I think that's another thing. So what will his match fitness be? So I just don't know. To be honest, it's such a surreal injury. So I have honestly no idea when he'll be back.
Now, I just have to pick you up on something you said on Sunday night, Declan, and maybe I'm paraphrasing. If I've misquoted you, just let me know. But I think you said that the Tigers are better off with a player like David Nofaluma compared to Charlie Staines. Now, can you put forward your defence for why you said that?
So, like everything, Eddie, I feel like you strawman me to death. That's not what I said at all. What I said was, I think we need, at the moment, a player in the mold of David Nofaluma, not a player like David Nofaluma, someone who comes into the wing and can focus on his yardage as opposed to someone who's just fast on the wing is what I was trying to say, because we don't really create enough space at the moment for someone to take advantage of Charlie Staines' speed. But if you look at someone like David Nofoaluma, he managed to score a try because he managed to borrow over Tyrell Sloan, and I'm not sure Charlie Staines would have scored that particular try against the Dragons.
I'm pretty sure the implication was you'd pick Noffa over Staines.
I thought so. That's what I picked up. But you have, clarified what you said. But I got a bad feeling, Declan, if the team was picked this week and they were both available, that you'd pick Nofoaluma.
No, I don't think I would. But I think I clarified in the chat as well. But I think you've chosen just to completely ignore that and ask me the same question, to which you will get the same response, Eddie.
But the audience needs to hear it as well, though, because that was what you said on the phone.
Gary, you said Steve was getting sucked into this as well. That Noffa, don't get me wrong, he was potentially my best player on the field on Sunday in a tie with probably Buller. But we've seen this narrative before, Gary. Maybe I'll be wrong this time. Maybe apparently Benji had a heart-to-heart with him, and since he's come back in, he's been excellent and more than first grade standard. But I feel like he's going to just revert back to old habits at some point, and Charlie Staines is the future.
Look, I don't think Noffa scores a try Charlie Staines scored in the corner the other week either. So they are very different sort of players. I would much prefer what Charlie Staines has given to our club over the past so far this season to what Noffa has. So I would be moving forward with Staines. I said after Staines' last game, I'd be signing him up for next year. If I could release David Nofoaluma now, I'd still release him.
But you look at Penrith and the team they have. I know Tyler May's out with that ACL injury, but you got Tyler May, Brian Toto, and Dylan Edwards, just guys that can absolutely truck it and get your sets off to a great start. I think
none of those guys are David Nofoaluma, though.
I know, well, that's why I said that the type of player you see, Gary, that David Nofoaluma is, not David Nofoaluma himself. It's called nuance. But I think that's what we should really be aiming for, just big guys who can start a set off well. And we've got Buller, who does it really well. We've got Junior Tupou, who does it really well as well. And I think that if David Nofoaluma can continue to play like this while Charlie Staines is out, then I think that's only a benefit for the team.
It is called nuance, but we don't have those other guys. We have the type of player that we have in that mold is David Nofoaluma.
I mean, Eddie said that he played really well on the weekend. So
he did play really well. And he finished second in the player of the man of the match voting as well. So he had a really strong game. But we've seen him have really strong games in the past, and then a couple of weeks later, it falls back to the showboating and the running sideways. And I'm very happy with how he played on the weekend, but I still think Staines has outshone him this year anyway.
Well, that's a negative attitude, Gary. I expect more from you. I expect this negativity from Eddie. But...
He's rubbing off.
Like I said, Declan, I'm a glass half empty sort of guy. It's time for the draft. Now, I've decided the first pick will go to whoever gets this. This is actually just a trivia that I've come up with on the run. 1969 Grand Final, Balmain beat South. Boys, what was the score? Closest to the pin. Don't look at your phones. I'm watching your body language right now. I'm watching on the Zoom. Declan's trying to cheat. You got 5 seconds. Declan,
you got glasses on. We can see the reflection.
The score was 16 points to 8.
Gary?
It was 12-8.
Okay, well, it was 11-2. So I'm going to give that to Declan because he was closest to the margin. Declan said an 8-point margin. It was a 9-point margin. So sorry, Gary. You're looking very, very disheveled.
I
am looking disheveled. I took my headphones off. My hair is just everywhere.
Declan, so you get the first pick in this draft. Now, it's a contentious one, probably between two players, but I'll let you speak for yourself. Best player in West Tigers history, who is your number one pick?
Well, I think, obviously it's a personal preference between the two, but I think objectively, I think most people would probably agree that this guy, he changed the game and how it's played for Habs everywhere. I think he inspired a new generation of players. I think he pretty much is the West Tigers. He's like a massive reason of like why we have the identity we have. And I think it's Benji Marshall. I think that he's probably the best player. He's achieved the most at the club, and he's probably the most talented player that I've ever seen put on the jersey. So I'm going to take Benji Marshall with my first overall pick.
Gary, pick number 2.
I think pick number 2 chooses himself, and it's Robbie Farah. The guidance and the creativity he provided for us around the ruck, I think, no one else has provided that sort of dominance.
Interesting one, isn't it, Gary? Because I probably during their careers, I was more a Farah man. Just the way, he hated losing. He was just a different mentality to Benji. But the time goes on after their careers, I look back at the amount of impact Benji had on our club and the game. I'd probably have Benji as my number 1.
Yeah, during their careers, for me, it was probably whichever one was off contract was the one that I felt was most important because I wanted him re-signed. And looking back, I think it's hard to deny what Benji Marshall brought to this club, not just on the field, the supporters he brought into the club, the kids that were in schoolyards doing the Benji step, all that sort of stuff. I don't think anyone can really hold a candle to what he brought to this club all over the place.
This is where it gets tricky, boys. Declan, you have the 3rd pick.
I'm going to go Scott Prince. Premiership winning half, captain of the club, and Clive Churchill medalist. The only Clive Churchill medalist we've had at the West Tigers. Probably the most all-round halfback we've ever had at the club, and just an absolute class. Played for Queensland, played for Australia. So, and got invited to Gary's famous Kibo party as well. That's in his resume. So, yeah, I'm going to go Scott Prince for that one.
No idea what you're talking about there, but it sounds interesting. Gary, I actually had Prince at 4. Now, you obviously can't take Prince, but I'm hoping you go for my number 3.
I'd say there's a fairly strong chance, but I'm going to be the first one that goes for a player who didn't play in the Premiership, and Gareth Ellis. I think what he brought to this side, and that's not Eddie's. So it'd be interesting to see what his 3rd one would have been. But what Gareth Ellis brought to this side is really hard to put into words. I think that strength and that wide running second rower, for me, he would have been in my top 3.
Okay, I had him at 5, but I had someone at 3 that I thought was a standout number 3. Declan, I know I didn't give you a lot of time to prepare for this, but who is your number 5 pick?
So I'm going to go controversial here because he doesn't really have a good relationship with the club. But just to be honest, he was one of the most freakish players I've ever seen on a footy field. He's kind of at the back end of his career now. But James Tedesco, when he was playing for us, literally carried us in his back some games. It was insane just how good he was. He had no flaws in his game. He was good at everything. And I remember this one particular game against the Cowboys at Leichhardt where he must have been 11 tackles in a row to score at the end. And he's just one of the most gifted players I've ever seen play for us.
You made a fair case there. He wasn't in my 6, but on what he produced on the field, maybe he should have been. Gary, you get the last pick of the draft.
This guy's probably actually my favourite player, despite I think the others had more of an impact, and it's Brett Hodgson. I think what he provided as a fullback, especially in that Premiership year, his goal kicking, he was a key component of that Premiership success. So Brett Hodgson gets in there for me.
Yeah, he was my number 3 pick, clear number 3, but I did have Prince Ellis in there. I didn't have a 6th pick. I had a number of guys. We might just cover some unlucky omissions. I'll go through who I thought maybe could have got in there. And Gary, you tell me maybe 1 or 2 that you thought might have been next cab off the rank for you. John Skandalis, 185 games. Liam Fulton, 162 games. Chris Hyington, 201 games. Mark O'Neill, 121. Chris Lawrence, 253 games. Todd Payton, 151. Keith Galloway, 173. Luke Brooks, 198. David Norfoluma, 180.
Yeah, I think they were really good choices. For me, Chris Lawrence is fairly unlucky. I know Declan probably doesn't remember the early parts of his career as well as what we do, but he's one of the best centers I've ever seen play the game. He's speed and a big thing for me is the amount of tries players playing outside him scored. We had Taniela Tawaki and Lottie Takiri both go close to topping the leading try scorer lists in years playing outside him. A genuine speedster as a centre and kind of reinvented his career as a second rower, but probably didn't get back to the heights that he was as a centre.
Declan, I went through about 9 players there, unlucky omissions. Maybe Luke Brooks for you, was it?
Yeah, just I think that obviously, someone like Drew Buller has had like a really historic start to it, so you've got to add him there. But no, in all seriousness though, I think Chris Huntington for me is someone who is a little bit underrated for us. He's actually a 2-time Premiership winner as well. He won it with us and he won it with the Sharks as well. And he was just someone that like probably deserved to play Origin, but never really cracked the team. Then went on to play for England. But I just remember him being so reliable. And when players like him left the squad at the end of, I think it was it 2012, we never really looked the same, did we?
I can't believe no one mentioned Lupina Kafusi. Like, surely he's in there.
3 different names. He had 3 different names. He went from
Jackson
to Lupina, and then he came back for the Bulldogs. And I remember because I was with a couple of Bulldogs fans, and his name was then Makasini Richter. And they were convinced it wasn't Jackson Kafusi. I was saying, no, this guy, he's rocks and diamonds. It is. They're going, no, this is the new player. But it was definitely him. So that was a funny story. But
if you're a bad player, just go change your name and you get a second shot. Yeah. Maybe that's what Kyle Flanagan should do.
A few of our guys maybe over the years could have done that and probably not got away with it. Declan, let's preview South. It's very interesting. I did my research, like I always do, before this game. And over the last 9 years, we've gone 1-1 with them 5 times. We've swept them once in 2016. In 2021, we lost both, but that was the infamous Golden Point game where, whoever one of the Burgess knocked it on and Luke Brooks went up the other end, but they gave South a try. In 2020, we also lost both, but one of them was 26-24 and 18-10. So given South have made 5 prelims in a row and been a very dominant club from 2014 onwards, that's a remarkably even record.
Yeah, I think that they're a team of skill, which I think we usually match up with like semi-decently. Like they never really go through you; they go around you. Like they're a class team though, and I think this year might be a little bit different because, like for me, there've always been teams that I would put ahead of them, whether it was Roosters, the Storm, or Penrith. But now this season, they're very clearly the best team in the comp at the moment. So I think that it's going to be really tough for us to win this game. I think that they've also been defending a lot better than they have in previous seasons. I think against the Storm, a lot of repeat sets the Storm got, but like the Bunnies did manage to kind of pull through, and I think their bench is really impressive. I think they've got Jai Arrow coming off the bench and Thomas Burgess, so they're getting a lot of impact from their second unit as well. So I think they're going to be a really tough outfit to beat on the weekend. And obviously the Trail, for some reason, just like gets really cranky when he plays us. So yeah, I'm hoping that he doesn't absolutely blitz us.
I mean, Gary, I rattle off all those stats, but I generally don't like to go off historical data. So it does worry me because I agree with Declan that they are the team to beat. They seem to have everything this year, and maybe the only worry for a South fan is that they're peaking sort of too soon. But, defensively, they look the best they have for a long time. And obviously that their strike is not just left anymore, it's through the middle and their right side's going well as well.
Yeah, this is a game that really worries me. If we are going to get a touch-up this year, it could be this weekend. I hope we see a committed side and that we can put them off their game. I think if we're going to win this game, we need to put them off their game. And maybe our defence has been doing that to a few teams lately. So hopefully we can continue to do that. But if we are any chance of winning this weekend, we really need to fix up that red zone attack. I think we need to play with a lot better shape than we have been and have our halves straight in the attack to create rooms for the likes of Buller and Tupou out wide.
I think we also need to do a rain dance just to hope that absolutely pours.
Saturday afternoon, I did have a look. Showers increasing, Declan. So let's hope
there you go.
At about 1 o'clock maybe.
If we can get Steve to do his usual rain dance up at Byron, I reckon we could be in for a shot. But yeah, I think that if we're going to win this game, it's pretty clear. We just need to turn it into a real dogfight, like middle of the field, just like argue, like fighting for possession. Because if it turns into like a game of footy where like the ball's thrown around a lot, I feel like there's only one possible result that's going to happen, and that's going to be a South win, unfortunately. But as you said before, we have matched up quite well with it before, and we really don't have that much to lose this game, do we? Because we've gotten the 2 wins, which has relieved a lot of pressure from us. So realistically, like, fans and like the expectation of the team isn't going to be that damaged if we do lose by a reasonable margin for this game.
Gary, I think we're going in unchanged. Is that right?
Bateman's coming back. So apart from Bateman coming back,
I mean, that will be. That's where I'm going to be interested to see this game, because I think, Souths, if they're at their best, they're going to beat us with the class they have. But I want to see how our pack goes, because they're a pretty highly rated pack, and that's where I think we can maybe mix it up a little bit, because Souths have been up. It's very hard to stay up for a long time. I think they've had Penrith, Melbourne twice. They've had a real run of hard games and had to really, big build up. So this is a game where they're off, a bit off with their attitude. And maybe our forwards can mix it up with them.
Yeah, I think our forwards will do okay with them anyway. I do think we got one of the stronger packs in the comp. I'm very happy with how our forwards have been going. As I said earlier, I think we do lack that high impact forward, but apart from that, I think we'll do fairly well in the forwards and contain them fairly well in the forwards. There's a few mismatches in the backs though, and that's going to be a concern. So, as Declan said, if we can keep it tight and keep it to the game to the middle of the field, we stand a lot better chance.
Okay, boys, I'm not Gary. I guaranteed victory last week, and I was right. I usually only do that once or twice a year. Sadly, I can't do that this week. But 15.5 start. I know you're not a gambler, Gary, but 15.5 start. I reckon we might be able to cover that. I think we might be one of those games where Souths are a bit asleep early. We can get a try or two, and then they sort of overpower us late.
Look, it's a 2-horse race, so I think you're always a chance in a 2-horse race, and 15-point start. If Souths get on a roll, it won't be enough. But if we can disrupt them a little bit and slow them down, then we can get close.
All right, boys, it's time for Yachty's quiz, and I think a little bit might be around Souths. Question 1. You both get a crack at this. What was the crowd number? I was at this game in round 20, 2005 against Souths at Leichhardt Oval. Clue: it was I'm pretty sure it was a ground record. Declan?
Was 18,000?
No, Declan. This is back in the days before, before basically safety rules were in place.
23,492.
Yeah, 22,877. So I remember this is probably the first sellout they should have had. So I don't think they locked the gates. And I remember being on the hill that day, and it was borderline dangerous. It was nearly 23,000. And there were people obviously on the roofs outside the ground, which is a cool sight.
On the toilets?
Yeah. So it was, I think from that day on, they capped it at about 20, and they've slowly, capped it. Soon they'll cap it at, something ridiculous, like about 8,000 or something, the way we're going with things. But, that was a record, and that won't be beaten at Leichhardt Oval again. Question 2. Which of these West Tigers players, it's a multiple choice, kicked the most amount of field goals in their entire rugby league career? A, John Simon. He played for us, Declan, in, probably 2001, maybe a 2. Benji Marshall, Scott Prince, or Robbie Farah. The most in their career. That's not a specific West Tigers question.
Declan. Benji Marshall.
Gary?
Robbie Farah.
No, it was John Simon. So Yachty, I think he likes playing with you because we kicked a grand total of 1 field goal for the West Tigers, but he kicked 23 in his career.
Yes, okay.
Some of those for Illawarra back in the glory days of the late 90s. Question 3. Ooh, this is a tough one. Might give you a couple of minutes thinking time. Name the 6 West Tigers players whose surname had a hyphen in it. Hyphenated surnames. They're becoming more and more popular. I suppose, I don't know if popular is the right word, but there's more and more of them in the last 10 years that I can think of. There's one who is at the Bulldogs currently, who was a West Tigers player. Hyphenated surnames.
Jeremy Marshall King.
There's one. He's at the Dolphins. There's one who's at the Rabbitohs who's actually starting the back row this week.
Michael Cheekham.
Yep. There's one on the Bulldogs for the wing, on the wing.
Josh Adokar.
Yeah. There's one who threw a horrendous pass that nearly ended up in a try on the weekend.
What was it?
St. George.
The
pass to Hunt.
did he play for the Tigers? Wait. Oh, it was them, but no.
Nope. Doc Basilla.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He was the one who passed that dog's breakfast pass that nearly ended up in a try. And there were two more. He's the brother of a Warriors winger.
What was it? Bradley
Bradley Qualawa. Bradley,
Yeah.
I'm not sure how to pronounce his Bradley Qualilawa or Qualawa. He was a centre back in the day, Gary. You would remember in the early 2000s. Had a bit of talent, probably never lived up to it.
I quite liked him.
And this player, he's got a brother playing for the Warriors on the wing.
Oh,
Sure.
Yachty's mate, he does the watches now. Leslie.
Watani
Yeah.
Selesniak.
Malachi Watani Zelezniak.
Yeah.
I could never pronounce the name when he was playing for us. So
Putting all three names into one there, Gary. It was a mixed sauce there you were doing. Question 4. Which Super League club did the Tigers sign Robert Mears from? Declan probably doesn't know who Robert Mears was. I think he was a hooker, wasn't he? Robert Mears?
yeah, he was a hooker. St. Helens.
Which Super League club? Gary, you want to have a guess? He's got
St.
Wigan,
Helens.
Hull, St. Helens or Leeds?
Pardon?
Wigan, Hull, St. Helens or Leeds?
St. Helens.
No, it was Leeds. Question 5. What did Pat Richards accomplish in round 13, 2014? It was a 23-20 win over the Knights at Marathon. What did he accomplish in this game? Something unique.
He scored a try, kicked a goal, and kicked a field goal.
Pretty much on the money there. He was the only West Tigers player to have scored a try, a conversion, a penalty goal, and a field goal in the same game. Last question. Who am I? The first clue might give this away if you can remember his name. He was a bit of an obscure player. I was born in South Africa.
Jared Safi.
There you go. Gary got it straight away. Yachty, you've got to be a bit better than that. You've given the answer away in the first clue. Usually waits till about the 7th clue to do that.
That was a pretty good quiz, Yachty. Well done.
Okay. I'm not taking Yachty again for your quiz. I'm not sure who won.
I won.
Gary's claiming the victory.
And we know, Declan, that when I say something, that it's true.
Yeah, I should deploy that at work just to say I'm right, and then I am right.
I employ it at work all the time.
Yep.
Hi, boys. Well, that's the end of the midweek pod. Unfortunately, it's going to go back to the Joel pod probably again on the weekend. I might make a special appearance if we win, although I'll let you guys, have some time to shine last week.
Mm.
Yeah, I shine all the time anyway.
Thanks for that, boys. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Declan. Hopefully we'll be talking to you after a 3rd win on the road on Sunday. See you, boys.
Thanks, boys.
Yeah.
Rising up.